Hello and welcome to SEC Basketball Reaction. I'm your host, Chris Lee, joined by Max Barr and Blake Lovell. We are here because, April Fool's joke, Buzz Williams heading from Texas A&M to Maryland. The Aggies will start a search. Maryland gets what I think is a really good coach. Max Barr, start us off. Your reaction on Buzz Williams to Maryland.
Yeah, it was in the works. Had a little bit of time to digest it. Get a little bit of time to digest it.
His
a bad moment.
Is headed to Maryland. Come on.
That was my style of play. I see a whole bunch of people now saying, oh my gosh, the SEC's offensive efficiency just went through the roof. You know what, guys? Shame on all of you. You are all going to miss Buzz Williams' brand of basketball.
All is a strong wording there. It's a strong word. I mean, listen,
so is miss.
Well, I mean, we said it. You can argue all you want with the the brand of basketball, and we've talked about the offensive numbers and all that kind of stuff, the 3-point shooting percentage and everything, but you can't argue with the numbers, right? And that is, 27 wins in 2022, 25 and 23, 21 last season, 23 this season. We mentioned after they lost to Michigan, the knock was that they just could not get to the second weekend of the tournament during his tenure there. And so, yeah, I mean, really after 2 years, I mean, he completely turned it into one of the, better programs in the league. And so we have our fun throughout the season talking about, sure, it's definitely a bully ball style, the defensive element, the free throws and the shooting percentages and all these things, definitely on brand. But, I mean, you can't deny that he had some success there. It's just, we know it's all about a situation where, for whatever reason, after 6 years, he's decided to go to Maryland, and now that sets up quite an interesting situation for not only Texas A&M, but Max Barr, because he has a decision to make here too. Is Max going to now transfer over to the Maryland basketball beat? Max, before you make a decision, I'm going to have a possible something that's going to help you out when we get to our candidates list, okay? There's going to be something where I don't think you should fear just yet, because I think Texas A&M could make a hire that could be true to your heart. But we'll get to that in a few minutes. So,
well, you've just perked me up, Blake. You've just lifted the spirits up a little bit.
By my list that I put together in a span of about 2.5 minutes. So I'm sure it's going to be very valuable and meaningful, but I did put a short list together. So,
Blake, I got to call us out. We put our man in a tough spot. I mean, we just ripped his heart out and then made him come on 5 minutes after the news.
You are the most.
Am I wrong, Max?
No, you're not. No, you're not.
Thank you.
You heard it. He tried to basically put Max in the ground last week. Now he's talking about ripping Max's heart out. I'm telling you, if Max Barr at some point, I'm going to ask some questions. I'm just being honest with you. I'm going to ask some questions about this person in the middle here. And we got audio evidence, video evidence of all this going on. But no, I get it, Max. Don't fear just yet, because I've got a list of candidates. I think some of them you're going to be intrigued by. So,
yeah. I know. What I'm curious about now, though, is what happens with Solo Washington and Farrell Payne, because that was going to be a solid. I spent about 5 minutes this morning talking about my concern of SEC front courts. That was not one I would be concerned about, returning Solo and Farrell. Now what happens with them? Now everything starts turning. I feel like we've done this before. Maybe like this exact thing last year. Now we got to try to piece together this whole roster. They had a few good freshmen coming in. The best one, his name is Jasir. It's either Rencher or Renker. I don't know if it's a hard CH or how to say it, but I've read he's their most college-ready freshman. He's the guy that they expected to step right in out of this class and have minutes. So that's another guy, Renker. what happens with him. There's some talent on this roster left that now's up for grabs. When's the last time that A&M went into the next offseason with uncertainty of what to expect? Like, it's been a while.
Yeah.
And all fun aside, he did a really good job there, I thought. I mean, it wasn't the most fun style of basketball, but they had an identity. They won a lot of games. They had a really nice year, even if it was ugly at times. That they banked a ton of good wins. He had that program on good footing. The problem was, I think, expectations were starting to become a bigger thing, and he had sort of reached that point where if they didn't go further, you know, if it wasn't him getting out, we were a year or two away from maybe them moving on. There was already that kind of talk.
Well, I think they can tie into this. Max, pull up Matt's comment there. I know you just started. They can tie into this. So Matt asks, as a Maryland fan, what are your thoughts on him, strengths and weaknesses? Well, Matt, we've talked about him a lot over the years, of course, but I'd say your strengths is that what Chris said, they have an identity. Like, you're going to be pretty much guaranteed each year he's going to build to a roster that has a certain identity. They're going to play physical. They're going to beat you up on the boards. I mean, they finished in the top 5 in offensive rebounding percentage the past 3 years. That's always been a common theme under him. They're going to get after you on defense. They're going to force turnovers. They're not going to play a high octane up tempo style. Those are some of the strengths, right? They're going to, like I said, they're going to get to the free throw line a lot. They're going to go at you. Like, guards will go downhill, attack. That's how I see it. Now, the weaknesses, as we brought up many times, I mean, they're just not they've never been a great shooting team, like, really at any level, I guess you could say. The shooting percentages have always been either average or below average, pretty much everywhere. 3-point percentage, probably way more below average. We brought it up during the tournament. They've only finished above 315th nationally in 3-point percentage twice during his 6 years there. So they've always shot around 30% or lower, seemingly. So I think he recruits to a certain style, being physical, being kind of the aggressor. I think beyond that, Max, I don't have a lot really that defines them above just those main things.
Yeah, to put numbers to it, looking at the KenPom page, his 6 years there, the best they finished in effective field goal percentage was 196. The best they finished in 3-point percentage was 255. Now, I still am intrigued by his last year's 3 years at Virginia Tech, where they were 8th, 31st, and 9th in the country in 3-point field goal shooting percentage. So I don't know what happened between Virginia Tech and A&M. I feel like we've gone over this before, and I don't remember what it was. But the thing is, his teams will play hard every minute, game in and game out. You never have to worry about effort with Buzz Williams.
Yeah, he's I'm not saying he has a low ceiling, but he's a floor raiser type of coach. In the last 10 years, he's only gone under 500 in a conference, ACC at Tech or SEC at A&M. He's only gone under 500 2 times in the last 10 years. That was his first year at Tech and his second year at A&M. Other than that, you're top half in the conference. Now, there's not a lot of like 1, 2, and 3 finishes, but it's top half. So maybe that shooting and offensive efficiency numbers that keep you back from the elite, the rebounding, toughness, defense, scrappiness, the togetherness of the teams. His teams are always so tight-knit. That raises the floor up to that top half conference finish pretty much every year.
And he takes over a team that just made the Sweet 16 and finished tied for second in the Big Ten. So, right? I mean, so like immediately the expectation isn't, all right, we're just going to ease our way into this. And let's just say, as long as we finish in the top half, right? If you're a Maryland fan, isn't your expectation that he better come in and just keep this thing going? We better be in the Sweet 16 next year, right? I mean, isn't that your expectation probably?
And look what he took over the last 2 times. Look what he took over at Tech. Look what he took over at A&M. much different time in Maryland. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an interesting scenario there. So.
That roster was built for him this year. Could you imagine Buzz with Reese and Queen? Oh my gosh. That's just perfect for him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and look, I think Bo's going to talk about it here. Can't wrap her head around the coach's belief that Maryland's a better job than A&M. I mean, it's dependent on what you think about that. I mean, again, Maryland doesn't have an athletic director. And like, that is also just one of those things when you get in these kind of situations where it's like, it's a strange deal how it works. But, you know, when you are kind of a school like that and you know there is no athletic director, then it becomes a little more interesting. Of course, they've gone back to the Texas A&M pipeline again, right? But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of a fascinating scenario to see how it plays out. I see our guy Sam Smith, by the way. He's pushing for a certain Tennessee coach to go back to his roots of Texas. I don't know if that's realistic, Sam, but I see you pushing for that. So yeah, there you have it.
When do we get to lists?
Oh, I see you're a little intrigued there, are you? Huh? A little intrigued by the list possibility. Wow. We'll get to it shortly. But let's get to a couple other things here. Zach, $2 super chat. The Auburn killer is gone, is what Zach says. So he's happy to see Buzz headed elsewhere out of the league. So, yeah, I mean, he did have success against certain teams. I'm sure if we go back and pull it up. But yeah, he did have some success. I see Pooh Bear up there at the very start of this was pushing for Nate Oates to go to Texas A&M. So a lot of you guys have some different agendas, I'm thinking. A lot of different agendas, I think, around here when it comes to this. Could not imagine that from our chat, but I tend to think you do that. But, I mean, look, Tyler brings up the point, and I know some other you guys have said it, but, yeah, I mean, that's kind of his trajectory. Like, you can look at it. And I'll be honest, I don't know that that's the worst thing in the world in college basketball and coaching. Like, to sort of try it out every little while and just see. Especially in an era probably like this where, again, depending on what your resources are with NIL and how much money you have committed and all that stuff. And we haven't even discussed that element, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we don't know those numbers. I'm sure there are people out there who do, and there may be people in the chat who claim to know them. But, you know, what are the numbers at Maryland? What are the numbers at Texas A&M? And how does that compare and all that stuff? We know that goes into these decisions. So, yeah. But. All right.
Ooh.
Are we ready?
We're ready.
We're ready for lists.
Ready. Names that I'm throwing. Okay.
Well, you see what the chat's throwing around here?
Yeah.
You see the chat.
All right.
Now, let's be honest. Are any of us surprised that this is the name that's going to be the most popular name out there for, like, Texas A&M message boards and all that? Like, Chris Beard's obviously going to come up. Like, there's no
coaching search ever.
I mean, again. And, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, we've already said it. Like, think about all the names that or teams you could attach Chris Beard to when it comes to the possibilities. So, I think this is obviously one that probably if you're a Texas A&M fan, you're gonna put this at the top of the list, right? But look at this. John wants the old baseball reverse switcheroo here. He wants the revenge for the baseball swap. So, we'll see if that happens.
Nice.
But again, you're going to see Chris Beard's name thrown out there. We know how this works. That's not going to be a surprise. I think there's some other SEC names that you could see thrown out there. Max, some other SEC names that are possibilities. Are there any that come to mind for you?
In the SEC?
Mm-hmm. Current SEC coaches.
Man. None jump out at me. I'm searching Twitter viciously right now to try to find lists.
I know. I'm surprised no one has lists out there yet. Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the time where you have fun with these lists, right? So.
Chat's saying Byington. Byington. Byington.
Sam Smith probably recited it word for word.
Oh, the dentist.
He's an interesting name, I think.
That would work.
Okay.
He's an interesting one to consider.
Yes.
Wouldn't have to change wardrobe colors.
You don't have that NCAA tournament success, and that may be a little bit of a pushback for Texas A&M fans. But I think if you consider, as we said, resources, those kind of things, would it be shocking if that was something that was a possibility? I think it's an interesting name. I'm not saying he's part of the job search or anything. By the way, the names I'm giving you are not confirmed to be involved or anything. I'm just giving you a list of names to consider, okay? Like, this is not the official search committee here. So I think he's an interesting name.
I've already reported that that's the official lead.
Oh, okay. Well, we know it's going to happen. Like, Southeastern 16 on YouTube has reported that multiple times here. Let me say, this is not an actual search candidate list here. This is just us guys throwing around names in a basketball forum. Is there another current SEC coach that could be interesting?
Okay, well, now you got me thinking. Maybe, he'd be a good fit, and it's kind of on brand, and I really like him. Maybe Porter?
I think he's an interesting one to think about.
Oh, I would love that.
I don't know if it's going to happen, but I think he's an interesting name to consider, possibly.
I like
if you're
him.
Texas A&M. And again, remember, I'm looking at this from A&M standpoint too. I'm looking at this from A&M standpoint and other people's, the coach's current situation. So I'm thinking about it from that perspective. So that's another one I thought would be interesting to consider for the list. Now,
what other maroon jerseyed teams?
No, now we're gonna go from the portion of my list.
You're going. I know where you're going.
You don't know
Max.
where I'm going.
Okay.
Oh, where's Max going?
I thought Max was going to throw out Father Lamont. So someone did that in the chat. What could that guy do with some money? He's finally getting some at South Carolina.
He just did something with some money.
Well, I know, but how? My point, is that an every year thing?
I mean,
what were you going to say, Blake?
Because they underfunded him the year after his debut year, which was a big success, and then found out the hard way you have to continue to do that.
Well, it's a better job. I mean, I'm not going to deny that, but I don't know if that's where I would go. I'm not. I mean, I don't know if that's realistic, I guess is the better way to put it. But you never know. All right, now we're going to go from the list that I have labeled current SEC coaches to the next section, which is former SEC coaches. Nice. So we're going from current SEC coaches to former SEC coaches. Are you ready now for this portion of the list? All right, are there any former SEC coaches out there that could be interesting candidates, you think? This is so fun. I love doing this.
Well, Tom Crean's name was thrown around in the chat. I'm presuming that was a joke.
Okay. That's not the first name on my list. I'm going to be honest with you.
Okay.
I love Tom, but that's not the first name.
A&M probably wishes this happened a few weeks ago so they could have gotten Mr. Wade.
Now that would have been a nice hire, I think. But I don't think that's happening now.
Muss?
Sign me up.
Busted.
But think about that, right? I mean, listen, he's a West Coast guy. He just got to USC. But could you imagine the chaos that could ensue? Hey,
sign me up.
I don't know how happy he is there. I have no idea.
At A&M.
The chat loves it.
There are other coaches on my list that I think. Remember, this is just me throwing out names. These are not names connected to the search. I'm going to keep saying that every 30 seconds. But I'm telling you, I think the USC job may have been a little bit of a. I don't know if it's what people think. So
a pit stop.
I'm just that's all I'm saying.
Nice, Chris.
I agree. Listen, John, I think you're right, but I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just telling you that I think there are some things about that job that probably were a bit glaring, but that's just my perspective. So would love it though. Ultimate Bizarro World, give me that. There's another former SEC coach that I think could be interesting to think about. It's actually 2 of them that are on my list.
Does
You're
it
not going to throw out
rhyme
the you're not
with-
going to throw out the basketball version of Jay Gruden, are you?
Jay Gruden.
Billy Donovan.
What the no?
Come on,
Talking
have a little fun.
Really
I'm trying to think of former SEC coaches that would be appealing hires.
There's one guy who's very well funded at his current spot. But we all know that this guy is going to eventually get back to the power conference level. And he's had some success at his current stop, to say the least. He's only 50 years old. This guy's going to be coaching.
Does it rhyme with
2
Rice Brew?
decades.
Oh, you're kidding.
He's an interesting one to think about,
Okay.
I think.
Wow.
I think he's interesting.
Okay.
But remember,
Okay.
Grand Canyon has no shortage of resources there.
Yeah.
But, hey, if he wants to get back into the game here, remember, the landscape's changed since his last year, 6 years ago at Vanderbilt. So, an
I
interesting
just
name.
saw one name that would make me run through a brick wall, maybe 70 of them.
Does he play the Buzz style?
Yeah.
Well, what do
Because
you
he's
think?
also on my list. He's also on my list. I have him on my list too.
Oh
He
my
is on my
God.
short list of guys. I put Muss and him on the same group. I said basically go east, young man, instead of go west. Like bring these guys
my
to the
gosh.
eastern part. Hey, that travel. Don't underestimate the travel either. For those two in the Big Ten, don't
Yeah.
underestimate it. So
He seems to be very unhappy at his current spot perpetually.
again, I think there is such thing as a perception of certain jobs and a reality of certain jobs. And I don't think those jobs are what everyone necessarily makes them out to be.
I gotta
We
put
need
this
to
up.
start.
Maybe that's it. Maybe that's how this plays out, right?
We need to start the Mick Cronin movement.
Oh.
That needs to be started.
Hey, what about Big Gator EJ? He's pushing for Stephen Pearl to get the option. So listen,
Ooh.
Final Four is a big meeting spot. This is where
Yeah.
A&M will make the hire. It'll be at the Final Four. I guarantee you. So something to consider. But Big Gator EJ, maybe Big Gator EJ is trying to put a little psychological pressure on the Tigers, throwing one of their coaches around for a current job. Maybe he wants some distractions this week. So, all right, let's continue on my list. You guys have done a pretty good job on my list so far. There's another former SEC coach that's out there that I don't know if he would be considered, but I think Andy Kennedy will eventually get back to the power conference level. Just don't know when that'll be, but I think
He was rumored. Where was he rumored last week?
He's only 50. He's only 57, by the way. I think sometimes people think Andy Kennedy's older than he is. He's only 57. So, yeah, he's a name out there. Who else?
All right.
Andy Kennedy was
I have
rumored to
I have a
Mexico.
wish list one. I have a wish list one, and then I have one, and you have to tell me if I'm an idiot or not. That
Wait a minute, this is a wish list?
First one's wish list, and then
Okay.
just tell me if it has like more than a 2% chance.
Okay.
Brian Dutcher.
That's an interesting one.
Just
long's he been in
it now,
stylistically
hasn't
wise,
he?
he's just. I know he's
Yeah.
been at wish list. That's why I said wish list.
Do they
He
have
could
to
do a
stick
lot
with
worse.
style though? I mean,
That's the thing. Like, I think they might almost go in the opposite, where it's
Yeah.
like,
I think that was not the most entertaining. I mean, look, he's a good coach, and winning is winning, but it was not the most fun style to watch, especially when it
Speak
was
for
not
yourself.
going well. I'm sorry, present company excluded. Didn't mean to offend Max Barr. Max, my apologies. I know that was hard for your ears to hear.
That was a wish list one. What about Ross Hodge at North Texas right now? He just had them at 2 straight top 75 Ken Palm seasons in a row.
I think if you're talking about going the route of like younger guys, but I mean he's at West Virginia now.
Then act like the last 10 seconds never happened.
Well, but no, I'm glad you brought this up because here's the thing. Like, we've seen this before, and I'm not saying this is going to be one. Well, no, hold on. I'm not saying this, but like, we do understand, though, it's realistic to think that there are possibilities where even when guys go somewhere, I'm not saying he's the guy, but like, there are other coaches, let's say, because I've seen people bring up the guy at UC San Diego. Why does his name always escape me?
Olin?
Yes, who just took the New Mexico job, right? But like, these are the kind of things where I'm not saying these guys are just going to, but we've seen this before where guys go take a job, a week later, some other job comes open and boom, like it changes everything. But I just, I'm not saying you can rule out a possibility like that either. So
I've got two completely random ones, and they are totally different, and I'm just going to throw these out there to see what you think. Alan Huss,
right.
Is it too soon? He was brought up in the chat. His reputation is that he would do really well with some money, and he's done pretty well at High Point in 2 years.
Well, I think he's a good coach, but are you selling A&M on someone who's made the tournament once in 2 years and has only had 2 years of head coaching experience coming to the SEC?
That's why I said too soon.
That's a hard sell, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he won't eventually get there, but yeah.
Here's another completely different one. What about Steve Alford? I mean, he's had a lot of success, guys. A lot of success.
I agree, but here's something to think about too, okay? Which Alford would be kind of ironic given the fact that Texas just hired Sean Miller. But like, you do have to consider that too, right? From it's not just about in-state stuff anymore because transfer portal. Like, it's everywhere and anywhere and everywhere. But like, again, Sean Miller's going to do a pretty good job at Texas in terms of the guys he's going to be able to bring in. They've got a pretty decent pool of money to work with and all that kind of stuff. So like, you got to know when you go into this hire. And Chris, I want to bring up this aspect too. You're telling me that Trev Alberts there is not feeling a little pressure. Is not feeling a little pressure after what's currently going on with the baseball standpoint. And so you want to talk about some pressure to get this thing right. And I think that's where you got to go out and, like it or not, you got to land somebody who's got a lot of proven experience, because you already know what like the backlash is with baseball right now. And if you go out and just get it wrong, right? Like, I mean, listen, it's all about football and we get it, but I don't know, man. That's a pretty tough spot for him right now, I think, given what's going on there. And then if you go out, you just lost your basketball coach. I don't know, something to think about.
Well, this is where my head was before you throw out Trev Alberts. Is let's think about it. Who's the AD? Where his relationships? His basketball coach when he was in Nebraska was Fred Hoiberg, who he didn't hire. Who's not done great at Nebraska, to be honest. And before that, he was at Omaha, so I don't know if anybody's off that coaching tree. But, I mean, Trev Alberts has not been a real popular guy where he's been. Like, he's a Nebraska alum, played football there on their great teams, and I married a Nebraska grad, so I'm a little familiar with these things. He was not very well liked at Nebraska, which is big on liking its own. But he was not very popular when he was exiting there.
So here's the thing. Not only do they have to get it right, but when you look at last year's big-time coaching changes, Mark Pope was hired on April 11th, and Calipari was hired on April 7th. They have got a absolute maximum 2-week window where they're too far behind in the offseason, the portal cycle. You think of what the scramble was for Cal and Pope to put together theirs. That was chaotic. You've got 1 week and a half to nail this down.
Yep. All right, to the chat. So people got some names they want to bring up in the chat. So couple other names. Someone brought up Grant McCaslin. I mean, obviously that'd be a huge hire, but I don't think that's.
I'll take it.
Just find that hard to believe. Yeah, hey, we're coming at this from the SEC standpoint. We'll take these kind of guys. Like, trust me when I say give them to us. But just something to think about. So, I mean, some other names I've seen thrown out there, both on Twitter and on message boards, because I always find it interesting to look at that kind of stuff. Because we knew this was coming. I mean, let's be honest. This has been the worst kept potential secret out there for the past however many days. So I think looking around and just seeing what people think about names that they would or wouldn't like. I know I've seen some people throw out like Brad Underwood. Again, I don't know how realistic that is. But the guy at Oklahoma State, there's just guys that I just blank on name-wise. Steve, help me out.
Like Lutz, is it?
Yeah, that's it, right? Like he's the guy. Yeah, he's at Oklahoma State now. He's been mentioned by some people. I mean, again, I think that's where and you just don't know, like we mentioned, the amount of, you could go for, someone mentioned Luke Murray, right? Someone mentioned that in the chat. Like he's another one where if you go that route, I mean, then you're talking about a different pool of candidates, right? You're talking about someone who's coming over from UConn, has worked with Hurley, all that kind of stuff. That's a different direction where you're going that route instead of going the route of hiring whatever, right? So I think that's an interesting one. I find this one fascinating. What if after all this, like he's like, you know what, I'm tired of let's just go somewhere else. I don't see that happening, but it's just, these are funny things to think about. So some people want Shaka Smart back in the SEC. Yeah. So
Shaka. Just thinking is there anything to like maybe an ACC coach wanting out with the way that conference is heading? Any candidates from there? Potential?
I don't know. I honestly, and look, we're not, the chances of us getting this right are low because, again, we're just, anytime you start a coaching search, you could put 150 names on there and give them justifications as to why. But I think Chris Beard would be top priority if I was A&M. But, I don't know if that's, you just don't know, right? Like, you don't know if that's the realistic option. But
the Brownell one, I mean, he was on the hot seat for how many years before last year? Usually, Gary Parrish says this all the time. When you were in that territory, it's hard to ever get out of there for good. So, I mean, that would be a complete shock to me, and I have no info there.
No.
You don't seem swayed by that.
I just don't see it. But again, it can happen. I mean, I'm never going to discount any possibility when it comes to coaching searches in 2025.
Yeah.
But I think that if you're A&M and you know what you're going up against in this conference and know how quickly you can slide back if you don't make the right hire here, understanding that Texas just hired Sean Miller. I mean, we look at the coaching guys that you're not just recruiting against regionally, right? Whether it's just straight up, high school recruiting or transfer portal, that kind of stuff. Like you gotta get this right. I mean, and I say that everyone feels that way, but like if you're Texas A&M, I mean, this is significant. So, and I know people are mentioning Scott Drew. Sure. I mean, put him at the top of the list. But to me, I mean, that's all about, are you going to, but remember, Buzz Williams was paid well at A&M. Let's not forget that. Like he had a pretty nice salary. So, there's a lot of money available there, I would think, at A&M. So I don't think they're going to be able to just go out and say, hey, we're just going to shortchange it because we got a lot of money. So something to think about.
I'm trying to look through the discords to find some dirt.
You asked ACC coaches who might want out. I mean, Steve Forbes is a good coach. I don't know if he'd want out of Wake. I don't think their president is particularly pro athletics. I mean, that's a complete dark throw start throwing the dart. But
what about the Pike, Steve Peichel?
The Pike.
Where's he from?
Rutgers?
No, I mean, I know he's from Rutgers. I mean, where's he from? Where did he grow up? Where are his roots?
I'm just looking through some Discord coaching carousels, and there's some names being thrown out. That was one of them we hadn't mentioned. Buckyball.
Oh, yeah. He's going to be a really good hire for someone.
We hadn't mentioned him.
Talk about change of styles.
Right.
And like you see this in baseball when a old school manager gets fired, they go to a more player friendly, and then when that gets out of hand and goes wrong, they go to a disciplinarian. That would be your complete change of styles.
It's the NFL model where NFL team fires defensive coach, hires offensive coach. Like,
yes, that's another way to
it
say
happens all the time. Like, it's just that's what happens. So, but yeah, that's. By the way, if you're joining in late, which I know some people probably are, Buzz is going to Maryland, so they didn't fire him. He's headed to Maryland. And I know people are bringing up here. Kevin Keats is the name you're thinking of at NC State. He did have the Final Four run. The overall body of work is probably. I don't know if that's going to thrill A&M fans. But hey, he does have a Final Four on his resume. Nothing wrong with that for sure. But yeah, I like Kevin Keats. I just don't know if that's the direction they'll head in. But yeah. So look, if we narrow it down, so let's just say if you're Texas A&M and that's the game we're playing here, we're not insiders. We're not telling you we have all the knowledge. We're searching for that knowledge, but we don't have it right this second. You know, if you're narrowing down to like a top 3 list, to me, I think Chris Beard's on there because why wouldn't he be? In my opinion, I just think that if you're Texas A&M, he's worth a shot. I think just considering that as an option, he just got Ole Miss to the Sweet 16, and quite frankly, you know, probably feel like they should have been the Elite 8 with a chance to go to the Final Four. I mean, beyond that, I think you're probably looking at, and yeah, like a Mick Cronin type that maybe is at a certain job, and it just maybe isn't what we think it is. And, you know, they're available, which this happens all the time, right? So I think that's kind of the scenario that plays out. But and then someone else, right? I mean, maybe it is someone within the SEC. Maybe it is a Jans type person who's, you know, of interest. Maybe it is someone else, like we said, that's kind of out there that we're not even thinking about, that, you know, someone like that. So
Cronin makes a lot of sense.
You gotta think that they'll just take first swing at Beard, just to do it to start. I mean, why not?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, is that not everybody's first swing?
Right. That's just like, I feel like that's just like procedure now. I feel like that's what every search has done.
Yeah.
Do you go within the conference, though, after being hired under the circumstances that he was hired under, or does that even matter at all? I mean, if it's Kentucky, it might matter, but...
So what I mean, I just think at this point, like, he's been hired by another team in the conference.
Yeah.
You know,
he's been rehabbed at this point.
It's like another team that you're going up against and competing against. He's their coach within the conference. So, like, you know, if you have the opportunity to land him, I mean, yeah, like I would think you're going to entertain that idea. But
a lot of Andy Kennedys flying around.
Listen, when this news first came out, whenever that was, what was that, days ago, we were texting, and he was one of the first names he was the first name Max and I had on. We said, all right, if there's a name out there, if you're not just immediately jumping to like a Beard or something, like who's another guy you could see getting back into the possibility? I mean, sure, like he's an interesting one, has some history with the league, and obviously, I mean, look at some of the guys he got at UAB. I mean, he got some talent. I mean, his best player is going to wind up playing for who next year? That's what everybody wants to know.
One of the top
programs in the country, probably. So, yeah. But what do you think of this one, Max?
Oh, I saw it. I've gone on. I've done multiple radio shows, and I've mentioned it in like every one. Like I can't stop. It's bothering me so much.
Oh my!
Ridiculous. You guys know I have
Max might vomit on screen.
Because then when you get a Bill Raftery commentated game, you're just like, oh, this is what heaven sounds like.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to get your reaction to old SVG as a possibility. All right. Well, I mean, that kind of exhausts the current list we have. I know we're all trying to track down information as we do this, but you guys like us to give our immediate thoughts on this. So, yeah, I mean, of course, it's going to be a name that we didn't even mention, but that's the way these coaching searches work, right? It's just going to be a lot of these. You're going to take your shot at the top names, and if you don't, I don't know what you're doing. But beyond that, I don't. Yeah, we'll see. Everybody wants Jay Wright.
Yeah, Jay Wright's not coming back for.
I don't see that. But listen, we happily take Grant McCaslin, but I don't.
Sure.
I don't know if A&M's winning that battle, but it's possible. So there you go. All right. Anything else? Chat. Actually, there is one more morning. Chat. Give us your prediction. We're gonna hold you to it. Who's gonna be Texas A&M's next coach? Give us your prediction. We're gonna remember this when we go back through the list. We want to know who is your official prediction. We do this every time there's a coaching search. We want your official prediction on the next coach. So Shane's got Hunter Dickinson.
Wade Taylor.
What's that?
They should just hire Wade Taylor right out of.
Oh, that's right. Well, yeah, he technically, yeah. So
right away.
Yeah. All right. Sam's got Rick Barnes. Shocker for Sam's prediction.
Thought he was going to say Jerry.
He said
Tyler's
Jerry
got Max Barr.
Oh, yeah.
John's going to go with the idea that Beard may be the guy. Chance has got Ricky P.
Oh.
How about this? But yeah, Trey Young's back with the GM of Oklahoma. We get a little AC Law. We get AC Law back involved now in the program. What's wrong with that?
Reel him in.
Chris Beard getting votes. Chris Lee getting votes. Richard Pitino, who just left for... Where'd he go? Xavier?
Villanova.
No.
Wait,
Xavier.
what? I say Richard Pitino? Yeah. Not Willard.
Sorry, I'm thinking of Willard.
Yeah. Scott Drew getting a vote here. So, yeah, there you go. All right. We'll have more thoughts. If Texas A&M makes a hire by tomorrow morning, we'll go live talk about it. But there's some fun names to get you started with on this. So we'll find out the real names and get back to you. So
we will indeed. Thank you for watching. In the meantime, don't forget what day it is in case you get punked by any friends in your texts. And have a great day. What a buzz. That's right. What if it's just started?
What a buzz just said, you know what? I want to refresh a little bit.
Just kidding.
Get to the press conference and say, actually, this was my entire plan to infiltrate your system that got you to the Sweet 16. It's all mine in College Station. So that'd be the greatest.
How about A&M hires Brad Stevens? Yes, haven't heard that name thrown out there. I rewatched last night the full 2010 Duke versus Butler championship game. Tell you what, you want to talk about a team knows how to play. Yeah.
Yeah, good luck with
that. Come on.
All right. You've heard enough of us. Thank you for watching. For Max Barr, Blake Lovell, I'm Chris Lee, host at Southeastern 16. God bless you. We'll see you again soon with more Hoops content.